Hamilton Lusk, or Ham as he was commonly known around the studio, would be selected by Walt as the lead animator for Snow White, the character. Lusk was an extremely accomplished animator who had risen to the highest ranks of the Walt Disney Studio, having worked on major characters in some of the most popular silly symphonies, such as Max Hare in The Tortoise and the Hare and Jenny Wren in Who Killed Cock Robin. To prepare Lusk for the task of animating Snow White, Walt Disney assigned him, along with Les Clark, another top animator, to animate the character of Persephone in the silly symphony The Goddess of Spring. This short was specifically created to test how well the animators could create a realistic human character. The Goddess of Spring was essentially a test run for Snow White. The results were not great. While it's clear to see that an admirable effort was put in, the character is simply not convincing on the screen. Walt, however, was optimistic and said,
"We'll get it next time."
Lusk was therefore assigned to animate Snow White, but he would not be working alone on the character. The other principal animator of Snow White would be Grim Natwick, who was a newcomer to the studio, hired specifically to work on the film. Natwick's career had been defined by animating female characters for multiple different animation studios, most notably Betty Boop for Fleischer Studios, a character that Natwick had created. To test how well Natwick could animate a realistic human character, Walt assigned him to work on a silly symphony called The Cookie Carnival, which featured a cookie girl who was given a makeover to look like a much more realistic human woman. Unlike Lusk, who had shown potential with The Goddess of Spring, but had ultimately fallen short, Natwick nailed his assignment, impressing Walt with his smooth, expressive, and believably human-like animation of the cookie girl. Natwick was assigned to work under Lusk, and had his own unit of animators within Lusk's unit to work on animating Snow White. In order to animate Snow White realistically, Lusk and his animators had live-action reference models who were filmed performing the scenes in the studio. Most of this live-action reference was performed by Marjorie Belker, a teenage professional dancer whose father, Ernest Belker, ran a dance school in Hollywood. Lusk's unit utilized rotoscoping of the live-action footage to assist in creating the animation for Snow White, but the animators did not simply trace over the footage like Max Fleischer had done with Coco the Clown. In fact, that idea was insulting to Disney's animators, who considered their skills to be above such crude techniques. Instead, the rotoscoped footage was used as a reference to allow the animators to incorporate the parts that worked for an animated character and leave out the parts that didn't, thus ensuring that Snow White captured the essence of live-action movement without falling into the uncanny valley. With this approach, Lusk and his team conquered the human animation problem and found the perfect balance between live action and animation.